If you could kindly join me with your hands in Gasho. So it's interesting to learn in this lifetime how to inhabit roles lightly, with love and with joy and with passion and with emptiness. How to delight in the game, the dance, the play, and begin to see your life experiences as grace, as a set of opportunities through which you can become free. Namo Amida-butsu. Yes. This is, in fact, a song about, a talk about silly walks from the Ministry of Silly Walks. Did anyone here watch Monty Python growing up? This one would have been from the 70s. Thanks, team. And so I kept on with that and also referenced the 70s once again. It just seemed like a lot of good things were happening. So, I wanted to talk about pride originally. This talk was going to kind of go in that direction. That's it pictured there to your right, if you have no idea what that is. And it would have been about getting uncomfortable for the sake of others. Yeah, and I would have said, oh, you know, there are ways we could be a more inclusive temple. We could try practicing each other's pronouns here, or getting our names right, because there are a handful of trans people in our Sangha. And when we use their correct pronouns, their correct names, it makes us feel like we're worth the effort. And it would have been a whole thing. And then I would have been like, ooh, and if you're feeling really sassy, oh, maybe you're adding a flag because there are people who feel uncomfortable about religions in general because of past traumas or being kicked out of their families because they didn't go with the dogma. And that would have been the harder move. And then, oh gosh, the hardest move. What if we took the genders off the restrooms and it was just places people go to use the bathroom? And then I would have been uncomfortable with it because even though I'm uncomfortable every week here, there's no reason why literally everybody else in this room should have to be uncomfortable. And it would have been this little talk by degrees, and it would have worked a little bit. But then I thought, okay, well, then we should tie it into Buddhism. So then I would have tied it into Buddhism, and we would have talked about how Amida and Shinran's radical acceptance sort of creates this a reason, this very clear precedent for being a little more inclusive. We get curious about other people who weren't usually included in Buddhism. Women, folks who aren't monks living in the mountains, saying Buddhism is for everybody. This practice is for everybody. So whoever you are, let me make sure that you feel welcomed, included, brought in here. And we could have talked about how the metta meditation is a practical tool. We all remember the metta meditation, right? We wish everybody that we know love, every stranger, every being in the world that we could ever possibly imagine. Loving, peaceful, happy life filled with ease, wisdom, all of these good things. And we start out by hoping that for people who are really easy and accessible, our very best friends, our partners, our family, we imagine what it's like to have this deep love for them. And then we move a step further to the folks that we only feel a little bit like kind of in like with. They're okay. And it's easy to imagine loving them. And then we get over to the people that we feel neutrally or even like have it a little don't like. Harder to like them. But this practice starts extending. It's really a trying endeavor. It starts extending out, and soon we're able to feel an amount of compassion for people that we don't really consider. So you know how you might be willing to help one of your relatives with rent if they're struggling to make rent 1 month. But you'll also struggle to give a stranger like $40, and you'll come up with excuses for it. I don't know them. I don't know how they'll use the money. It's the same kind of, we find our reasons, but the point is there's a limit to our love. We all have a limit where that stops. And so this is about extending that, expanding that. And I think it would have gone really well. It would have been very appealing. We're mostly Buddhists in here, and I'm talking about Buddhism. But as I was writing it, I realized I wanted to get at something a little bit deeper down and a little bit sillier. Because it's fine that we talk about this, and it supports these people that we've invented for ourselves. Like, I'm Jack, and I'm doing a very good Jack show, and you're Haru, and you're listening in a very Haru-y way, and maybe the message is getting through to you in that fashion. But what are those people? What is it that we're doing? So I decided to be slightly vulnerable instead. I I have a silly walk. It goes something like this. This is what it looks like, and then sometimes this foot drags. So I used to just have one flappy arm, you see, but then I went through severe heartbreak and emotional trouble, and so now I have two flappy arms to represent how serious it is. I've got this one very proud leg. It's the amount of self-love that I've managed to gain in time. Very, very good leg. It drags this sort of woe is me leg behind me where I'm like, no, but I'm still a person who has been through great pain. But I keep my chest up very proud because I'm also a proud trans person. And it's important that I show up properly for my identity. And then I get anxious suddenly, and then both the feet start going this way, and I wanted to go that way, but it's too late now, I'm worried. And so we have this elaborate walk. We all have this elaborate walk, and we all realize, perhaps at some point or another, how silly we're being. And so it does end up tying, incidentally, into Buddhism. There's this thing called the 3 marks of existence. I think most of you have heard about it. Why am I over here? I could be over here doing this talk. I'm wireless. Come on now. There it goes again. So there are 3 marks of existence. One is that everything changes. The other is that you are not your silly walks. Whatever roles you think you have, you are a parent, you are a child, you're an anxious person, you're a Buddhist, you're someone who's generally compassionate, you're a helper, you're a irrigator of Portland parks, you're a doctor, whatever it is, you're not those things. I'm not anything that I just showed you over there. And pain comes from taking your walk too seriously. Because what happens if I'm insisting so hard that I'm this anxious person? Well, whenever somebody comes up to me and says something nice, my immediately thought, but I'm an anxious person. I don't think I trust you or like you, and I don't think I want to hear what you have to say. And I've robbed myself of an experience. What if I position myself squarely as a Democrat, say, and then somebody comes over who doesn't share my political views, and now, I have this handy narrative, they're now the enemy. And maybe they were a lovely person. Maybe they're not as committed to their role as I am to mine. But if we both commit hard enough, we could end up hating each other real hard. Could be something we do as a hobby. It's good to have hobbies. I could position myself as an ardent trans person, and I could see anybody who wants to, who doesn't understand me or get my pronouns right every single time. I could say, well, they're the enemy. But what good is that going to do me? Because people are more than these things. We're all growing, we're all changing, we're all clumsy. So we have these commitments to these walks. And it's very tempting to say that that's all that these walks are. These are the roles, these are the stories that have those heroes and villains in them, and these joys and pains and all of it. We could say, good. I've now busied myself and I found my little group of friends that I'm comfortable with. They all have roles that are similar to mine. And that person is I don't know, they're too old to get it, or they don't remind me of me enough to get it, or they're too young to understand, or they don't like gardening like I like gardening. I could never be friends with them. I don't like non-gardeners. And this all sounds very silly, but you all are doing it every day, right? Because have all of you, I think most of you have been on the temple board at this point, haven't you? At one point or another, you were all an officer. Were you all the president at some point? It feels like sometimes. So I was at a board meeting just the other week, and normally it's all, we just agree with each other. We give a bunch of money to folks. We agree that we should have a better mail slot, and it's a good time. On occasion, we get into more serious topics, and we were talking about one the other day. And so I sally forth, I'm Jack, and these are my thoughts and feelings about this sort of thing. And then, of course, Suniti comes in and says, well, I'm Suniti. I'm doing the Suniti dance to talk about my feelings about this. And then Elaine says, yes, well, I have a thought or two about this. And then Judy comes in and is like, well, but have you considered? And soon everybody, and then Ken comes in. So everybody's here having their little dance and doing their little roles, and it's very silly. And there's a moment in there where I think to myself, if I don't take my walk a little less seriously, I'm going to come away feeling exhausted by the end of this. I'm going to go to bed tired. This is not going to do me any solids at all. But what does it mean to let go of that role? Oh my gosh, the most dangerous thing happens. If suddenly I realize that I'm doing this intently, and then I go, I'm just going to Ciao. Chill. Yes, get on a little like Vespa of ease and get over to some more relaxing stuff. Then I could have had a horrible time. We all could have, probably. Hopefully we all managed to pull back a bit. But it was nice. It was good. But what happens when we do that? Oh, but does it mean that I stand for what I was saying any less? Does the me, this purposefulness vanish? Does it not mean anything then? Should I let go of everything? Well, no. So, there is this book that I really, really love. It's called A Psalm for the Wild-Built. And there is this scene where the very sweet monk is having an existential crisis about feeling like they're not good enough or not doing enough. And I feel like in this world and all of this climate and the news, that's what I'm supposed to say in this role, right? You all see the news and you're frustrated. What can you do? But we all do see it and we all have feelings about it. So this character says to the monk, the world simply is. If you want to do things that are meaningful to others, fine, good, so do I. But if you want to crawl into a cave and watch stalagmites form for the remainder of your days, that would also be both fine and good. You keep asking why your work is not enough, and I don't know how to answer that. It is enough to exist in the world and marvel at it. You are allowed to just live. So then the monk, of course, says, but how does the idea of maybe being meaningless sit well with you? And the reply is, because I know that no matter what, I'm wonderful. And that's a kind of scary idea. It's a scary idea that maybe I have to look at the person who decided, there's this wonderful woman named Sarah Lloyd Webber, I believe. And she is a mycologist from Tasmania. She decided to spend her whole life studying the slime molds on a series of logs in one bog in Tasmania. That's her whole thing. I have her book. The photos are beautiful. But this is what she committed her life to in that little community. And that has to be just as perfect and good and beautiful as it is somebody going out and protesting and pushing for policy change and spending all of their time doing abolition work. And it's tough to see how both of those things are perfect, but I think that's also what Amida Buddha wants us to see it as. Wants us to say, there you are in your weird range that you've gone, oh, this is a good use of a life. This is a bad use of a life. This is a medium use of a life. And, oh, you're sticking to that so tightly. You gotta know it's so much bigger than this. It's so much faster than this. This is special. Please fight for change. Resist stories that make you or your own community smaller. Still hold your walk lightly. And a lot of you have been around the block more times than I have. I'm one of about 7 people here who are under 40. And that is so fair. So what on earth do I know? I can't stress enough that everything I'm telling you, I am bad at. I have crushing anxiety. That's where some of the flappy arms come from. And gratefully, a very nice doctor said, I noticed you have clinically significant flappy arm. Let's give you some medication for that. And I'm grateful for that. I flap my arms slightly less. But still there is this desire, especially as you get older, I think, and I'm already experiencing it, but I'm experiencing it right now. I can't imagine what it's like to go on longer with this desire to get comfortable. You get used to your role. You get cozy in it. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the world is so much bigger than that. So what can we do? How can we take ourselves a little less seriously? And I think it comes down to throwing anything and everything at it. You do need to try walking Sillier. And what Sillier means can be very different for everybody. A very silly thing for you to do based on the character you have played for your whole life might be just like going to therapy. It just might be a handy thing to go to therapy sometimes. It might also be a good idea to finally take up juggling, because when you were 16, you thought it was pretty neat that people juggled. Now it's time to become an expert juggler. You walk around with your little, you kind of figure it out. I'm more horrible at it, but it's fine. Or it might mean getting a pen pal who's an inmate somewhere. You know how much a letter means to an inmate? I have a few very lovely friends in prison, and they just It's just a nice thing to have human connection. You can decide what silliness is. Another thing that's silly is when you're walking alone in nature, make a silly sound. Have you all tried this? Has anyone tried this before when you're completely alone? Do you ever just make like a little like, whoop, 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 whoop? Or do you try to like copy the birds that you're hearing and maybe nobody hears, like, like I hope they don't hear me giving my best like, and you kind of hope that the bird looks at you like you're really doing something special here right now. I try this with squirrels sometimes because I hear if you do this thing with squirrels, it's kind of like their tail, and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, you're safe. You're also squirrel? Squirrels. And that's supposed to calm them down. So when no one else is watching, I'll be like, and then the squirrel will run away. It doesn't do anything. But I'm trying, people. But why do all that? It's very fun to say. It's very easy to do this silly walk with you all for a while. I'm going to make you do it later. But the reason we want to do this is because I think, and again, I'm pretty bad at this, but I think that I might be the only thing in my way from loving you. I think we might be the only things in our way from loving each other. Because we picked our stories, and our stories told us who the villains were, and sometimes our stories told us that we were the villains. Isn't that special? Isn't depression horrible? And so you have these lovely stories. But if we can get out of their way, we can kind of go back to what Buddhism has been telling us, is that we are not deep down these distractions, these stories, these things. Lessons can happen here. Growth can happen here. I've been standing here for a little too long. Lessons and growth can happen here. Special things can happen here. But if we take them too seriously, they'll start getting in the way of our compassion. Buddhism says underneath all of these roles is this profoundly loving, Buddha-ish looking entity that can hold people very, very gently and lovingly. That'll be a little more generous than we expected, a little more loving than we expected, a little more... They're not a helper, because a helper is a role, right? If I'm a helper, then that means all the people I interact with are people who need help. Instead, could you just be this helpful person who sees that the world is kind of full of suffering, and maybe you'll help out some, and it'll be good, but it'll be enough. Because we're all a little distracted and hurting, and we're trying to be enough. That's why we have to walk a little bit lighter. Are we communicating, people? This is something that one of my favorite nuns, Venerable Rabina Corton, talks about a lot. She's this Australian nun who will swear at you, which I respond very well to. I think it's nice when a very angry woman tells me what I need to do with my life, and I can investigate that later. But when I'm told so clearly, hey, buddy, you are in your way. You're the reason that you're not doing quite so much in the community, or that you're doing too much. You start overcommitting to things because your sense of self relies on overcommitting. Oh, how many of us said yes too much in this temple? Whew. Oh, it's tough, but it means so much to us. We hold these roles so dearly. It's going to burn us out. But are we communicating, people? Is the idea of the silly walk, is this getting through? Yes. The roles? Yes. Any acknowledgement would be so helpful right now. I'm so vulnerable. Great. So then, I'm going to ask you to try walking with me. And if you don't want to walk, that's fine. You know how I said that thing about being in the woods and making like a silly noise when no one is listening? You could make a silly noise too instead of walking. You could sit in your seat and go, which would be good because those of us who are walking will need a soundtrack of some kind. And I want to tell you too that this whole thing, this like wearing a silly outfit, none of that comes naturally. I am scared to the edge of my life when I do it. And I get so on edge and like, oh, I love that you're doing that. Please stay away from me. This is very awkward. I don't want to be associated with you. That's how I move through the world. And if that's the role I decided, that I'm too cool and nonchalant to be taking myself so sillily, then that probably means that I do need to try being silly, doesn't it? Joao with the alley-oop. Oh my God, I didn't realize I was shooting the ball and there you were. I got it. Anyway. Nixon 5, are we here? So, I'm going to ask you all to try walking with me. We have a silly walk. If you would like to stand, stand. If you would like to sit down and make silly noises, please make some silly noises. Make some silly noises now. Get out into the aisles and walk with me a little bit. There we are. Yes, very good. Oh, thank goodness the people who I brought here are willing to do this. Make silly noises, those of you who can't walk. We need this. This is all we have. We are all we are together. If we can't, who will? This is it. This is Buddhism. Yes, Elaine. Oh, we love to see it. There we are. Okay. Oh my goodness. Now we can slowly return to our seats, having felt the fullness of life, because we can't hold on so tightly. Actually panting. So we must remember, Buddhism is also a silly walk. It's something we decided to do. We decided, I know this world is silly, but I want to help out a little bit, and I want to hurt a little less. So maybe if we can pull out from our minds and practice it in little ways. I promise, when you're starting to take yourself really seriously and then you remember this, you'll be like, oh, wait a minute. This is ridiculous. I just pranced around with that person a few minutes ago. We can chill out. This is all a game we're doing here. But maybe it will make these things easier. Maybe it'll make these pride things easier. I don't know, but I can tell you, as someone who has changed so much of their body and so much of their mind over the years, as I'm sure all of you have, this is the experience. And there's so much world out there if we get out of our roles and see the world for as big as it is. Are you really interested? You're really interested in silly walks, aren't you? I really am. I hope we all really are. If we could put our hands in Gasho. One last time. So it's interesting to learn in this lifetime how to inhabit roles lightly, with love and with joy and with passion, with emptiness, how to delight in the game, the dance, the play, and begin to see your life experiences as grace, as a set of opportunities through which you can become free. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. It has been such a pleasure. Thank you, everybody.